India designs some of the world's most advanced chips, yet building them has been out of reach. Now it's embarking on a high-stakes $10 billion mission to construct a semiconductor empire from the ground up in only a decade. This is the story of a monumental gamble that aims to reshape the global tech landscape. But with immense hurdles and powerful rivals, is it a brilliant strategic move, or could it become a catastrophic failure in the making?
India is a true superpower in chip design, home to engineers that work on the latest tech for giants like Intel and NVIDIA. But here's the paradox. Why is its share of global chip manufacturing virtually zero? This has created a massive strategic vulnerability that the nation must confront.
Right now, as you're watching this, thousands of engineers in cities like Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Noida are designing the next generation of chips for global giants like Intel, NVIDIA, and Qualcomm. India is a design superpower. It's home to nearly 20% of the entire world's semiconductor design workforce, a talent pool of over 125,000 engineers who are the architects of our digital age. But when it comes to making those chips, India's share of global manufacturing is virtually zero. Less than 0.1% of the world's silicon wafers are fabricated here. For decades, the country that designs the chips has been almost completely dependent on other nations, primarily Taiwan, South Korea, and China, to actually produce them.
After decades of missed opportunities, two global shocks gave India a chance it simply couldn't ignore. Let's look at how the pandemic and the US-China tech war triggered a $10 billion plan aimed at achieving in one decade what competitors took 3 to accomplish.
Why, after decades of inaction, is India suddenly making a $10 billion push? The answer lies in two global shocks that fundamentally altered the strategic calculus for both India and the world. The first was the COVID-19 pandemic. As the world went into lockdown, the intricate, hyper-efficient global supply chains that had been built over decades suddenly snapped. The most acute pain was felt in semiconductors. Automakers had to halt production lines, electronics companies delayed product launches, and prices for everything with a chip inside soared, all for want of tiny pieces of silicon. The world woke up to a stark reality. Over 80% of all chips, and a staggering 90% of the most advanced ones, were manufactured in just a handful of locations in East Asia, primarily Taiwan. This extreme concentration was no longer seen as efficient. It was seen as a critical vulnerability. The second and more enduring catalyst was the escalating technology rivalry between the United States and China. Starting in 2019, the US began imposing sweeping export controls designed to cut off China's access to advanced semiconductor technology and equipment. This effectively fired the starting gun on a new era of technological competition, forcing a global scramble for supply chain diversification. Major corporations and entire countries began actively pursuing a China Plus One strategy, a search for a new, reliable, and geopolitically stable hub for high-tech manufacturing.
A $10 billion plan is certainly a promising start. However, chip fabs demand near impossible perfection. India is currently facing a monumental battle against its own weaknesses in power, water, and skilled talent. It's a three-front war that could potentially doom the entire initiative.
The second infrastructure challenge is even more fundamental: water. A single large fab can consume millions of gallons of water every single day. Some estimates for a large facility are as high as 5 million gallons daily. And it cannot be just any water. It must be processed into ultra-pure water, UPW, a substance thousands of times cleaner than drinking water, stripped of nearly all minerals, particles, and microorganisms. The process of creating UPW is itself water-intensive. To produce 1,000 gallons of UPW, a facility might need to start with 1,500 gallons of municipal-grade water. This places an immense strain on local water resources. Herein lies the problem. Gujarat is a historically water-scarce state. With 5% of India's population, it has access to only 2% of the country's water resources.
Even if India manages to build the factories, it could still face spectacular failure. A global subsidy war, outdated technology, and shifting political landscapes paint a nightmare scenario. India risks spending billions only to develop an industry that cannot sustain itself.
Especially in the mature process nodes that India is targeting. If global supply outstrips demand, chip prices could fall, making it very difficult for India's new high-cost fabs to compete without permanent government support. This raises a critical question. Is India building a globally competitive industry, or is it just building a permanently subsidized one that can't survive on its own? India's first fab, the Tata PSMC venture, will produce chips at 28 nanometers and above. This is a crucial market segment, powering a vast array of everyday electronics. But it is far from the cutting edge. By the time this fab opens in 2026, global leaders like TSMC and Samsung will be mass-producing chips at the 2-nanometer node, a technology that is exponentially more advanced and more valuable. As a late entrant, India faces the daunting risk of being perpetually stuck on older, lower-margin technologies. It is stepping onto a technology treadmill that is already moving at high speed.
India's audacious attempt to bootstrap an entire semiconductor ecosystem is a high-risk race against time. Success relies on overcoming tremendous internal challenges flawlessly before its window of geopolitical opportunity closes.